Yeah, my name is Zach Neto, and you're listening to Halfway Around the Halo.
Fires the first. The Angels have no hit. The Seattle Mariners racing back to the track. Gone! Big fly for Mike Trout. There it is. Hit number 3,000 for Albert Pujols. Gone! Big fly, Ohtani shot. Waltrout leaps up, and he got it. Oh, my! Jared Reeder has no hit. The Minnesota Twins. The Angels, world champions.
Hello everybody, I am Nick Wright at LA Angels UK, and this is Season 8, Episode 3 of Halfway Around the Halo, your LA Angels UK podcast. We are back, Halo's Baseball is back, Major League Baseball is back, and the Angels have started the year with a Desmonds. 2-2 versus the Astros, so much for us to unpack in this episode, and I cannot wait to do that. We were going to record last night, but I must say I was absolutely livid at the way the weekend's games had gone. So I've given myself a chance to calm down a little bit, to compose myself, to collect some of my thoughts. Toby was all ready to go last night, but I don't know. You could have seen some raw passion and emotion. I did a video at 3:30 the night before. That was enough for me. So I just thought, you know what? Calm, composed. It's Friday afternoon. I've got a Monday afternoon. See, I've got peppermint tea here. It's not quite the Angels win drinking on the job, but it's all I could do this Monday. But thankfully, Toby is with me off the back of very little sleep, I believe. Hopefully that won't cloud his judgment, but we trust him, don't we? Toby, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. As you say, very little sleep. I am currently working in Paris, so it's very much a European capital city tour for me at the minute, I guess. Although last week was leisure, this week is work. And yeah, I've managed to watch the Angels games. Some happier moments, and obviously we'll delve into it. But yeah, some better moments for us. Is the lack of sleep going to cloud my judgment? It normally does. So sure, get ready for some outlandish statements over the next however long.
Like Jack Kahanowitz actually being a viable Major League pitcher, for example. Maybe.
I mean, all the signs were there. However, we might talk about it. He might be a feature in a little bit later on in the question.
I think that's probably right. Also, I just want to say shout out to any of my colleagues that are listening to this podcast and may have stumbled upon it as a result of me trying to push the Angels in the office last week. It was opening day. You know what? It's come up as a topic of conversation. The articles, the no-hitters come up, Toby. I know I don't like to mention it on the podcast. I was there for Reed Detmer's no-hitter. That may have come up in the office. The USA Today article, the Athletic article, all of the positive press that I received a few years ago. I mean, it's been surfacing. I don't know how. But if you're listening to this, and you're a colleague of mine, welcome to the show. I hope this is probably a one-and-done experience for you, as I'm not sure that Angels baseball is necessarily top of your priority list in that precious downtime that we have, but who knows. Toby, anything for them?
Yeah, welcome. And for anybody who isn't aware, obviously Nick started mentioning that the Angels just started with a Desmond, and that is classic Cockney rhyming slang for a 2-2. As in the old South African Prime Minister Desmond Tutu. So yeah, welcome to all those who know what a Desmond is, and welcome to those who've just learned what a Desmond is.
And welcome to those that enjoy a lovely peppermint tea, because that is hitting the spot, let me tell you. But on with the show. So let's delve into this a little bit, and let's just talk positives for a minute, Toby, because you know what? As we said, 2-2 against the Astros. It's actually what I predicted going into the season for this opening series. And actually, if I'd offered that to you on Thursday morning, I'm sure you'd have snapped our hand off for that. I mean, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Loads of positives to talk about with that. And to start with, I actually want to open the show and just talk about Michael Nelson Trout, because the resurgence we've seen over these 4 games, it's 4 games. He's got to stay healthy, but everything is working for Mike Trout right now. He has walked 7 times. He's hit 2 home runs. He's got an average nearing 500. He stole a base. He made an incredible sliding catch in center field. Everything is working. It's just the eye, right? He's laying off those high fastballs, something that's been his kryptonite over the last few years when ill health has dogged him a little bit. He looks MVP-like Mike Trout at the moment, doesn't he? As I said, it's 4 games, but what a difference it makes having that Mike Trout anchoring that lineup in the 2-hole. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're keeping it positive. Don't get me wrong. Mike Trout is back. He looked like he's never left. But the cynic in me and the rational Angels fan in me
Don't do
says
it. Don't do it.
he started like this in 2024. Kind of similar. He looked incredible. He was kind of doing well, and then by the end of April, season-ending injury that shouldn't have been a season-ending injury that ended the season. Whatever. Um, I am not going to take these times for granted because previous history tells us that they are going to be short-lived. But I'm going to enjoy him while he's here.
Yeah, you had to bring it down so early, didn't you? Like, literally, I'm there, I'm hyped. It's Mike Trout, it's MVP, it's back. It's not just 3 times, it's going to be 4 times. It should already be 5. It should be 6 at the end of this year. Whatever, it's Mike Trout. You're probably right. But what I think is accurate is even if he started really hot in 2024, which he did, for me, there are just subtle signs that this feels slightly different. And it is that walk. It is that eye. Everything I've seen from him is when he was vintage. Like, Mike Trout knows that strike zone like the back of his hand. Mike Trout knows exactly where pitches are all over that. And for me, I think that's been lacking. He's been swinging through stuff he shouldn't be and just not judging. And this weekend, in a place where he historically has said he can't pick up the baseball very well, he was doing exactly that. That is one thing that makes me positive. B, it was just that catch in centre field, wasn't it? We haven't seen that type of action from Mike, and I'm sure we all held our breath. Like, my heart skipped a few beats. Do I want him making diving catches and sliding like that and going down hard on the turf? Probably not. But to see his body was there and he was willing in his mind to just go for it, no hesitation, that was positive again for me.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the steal as well. Obviously, he's already 50% of the way to his season steal total from last year, and he played 130 games. So that tells you that he's feeling good, his body's feeling good, and I really just want him to kind of keep doing it. And I do like that they're mixing in the DH days for him now. It obviously we saw how it affected the defense, but I think you can kind of take those trade-offs for a healthier Mike Trout for the longer the season goes.
Definitely. Anything we can do to keep him healthy, anything we can do to keep him on the field and contributing to this lineup is a positive because he is still the best player we have. He is still the one player that when you look at our lineup, opposition are fearing him. They do not want to see Mike Trout in an Angels lineup. They do not want to face him. They are going to pitch around him. That's why it's important that guys like Shanuel, who seems to be hitting in the 3 spot to start the year, does contribute and can drive in runs. And he started the year with 2 home runs as well, which we'll come to. But what I wanted to talk about so far, actually, is the big contrast I have seen between this Halos team in 4 games and everything we've seen the last few years in terms of plate discipline. Now, the Halos have walked 28 times in 4 games, which I think is remarkable. I don't know if you have the stat for how many games it took us to reach 28 last season, but my guess is it was fairly far along the line. Trout obviously led that, but guys like Zach Neto had 5 walks. He's not necessarily a walker, but he's done so. I know that like Moncada, Shanuel, Adele, these guys, they were taking their walks. They were taking what the pitchers were giving them. They were being disciplined, and that's something we have not seen. We saw a lot of strikeouts, and there were still a fair amount of strikeouts this weekend, but I thought that was really positive to see the approach, even early in the season, seems very different to what we've seen previously.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it there. There's just a clear, I think, patience that wasn't there last year. I think it's kind of, rather than just being aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, it's kind of selective aggression and kind of waiting for your pitch. And I hate that my mind immediately has gone negative. Maybe it's the lack of sleep, but yeah, you kind of arguably not being aggressive enough, and that's how the game ended yesterday. But there are times where it's just looked so much better, and the question is it kind of erratic early season pitching, or is it just that the Angels are actually going to be a team that looks a lot more disciplined, is going to draw a lot more walks and actually take starters out of the game early rather than having starters consistently going at least 6 or 7 because the Angels can't get anywhere near them. So hopefully it carries on and it's not just a one series thing, because they did look a lot better offensively.
They did. I honestly can't really fault the offense over the weekend. Yeah, you're right. It ended yesterday with two guys that just watched strikes pretty much down the middle of the play. It's not what you want to see, but the discipline was there, and actually the power, where we have been strong in recent years, also the power was still there. We've hit 9 home runs over the weekend, and actually spread out really across the team. Neto had 2, Shanuel had 2, Trout had 2, and we saw Lowe had a big 3-run shot, didn't he? Parazza had a really great game the night before last, and then Soler also hit a 20 launch angle rocket out into the core of the boxes. But that's spreading that power around. People like Joe Adele, he was contributing a bit, has yet to find the power, but there's still more to come. And again, that was really promising, I think, to see for this lineup.
Yeah, Joe Adele, he has found the power because he hits the ball very hard. He just hasn't found the air time on his balls that he's hit so far. So he's still hitting the ball extremely hard, as you expect Joe Adele to do. He just can't lift it at the minute, which kind of mirrors what happened last year as well. He was just hitting a lot of hard balls into the ground, and then kind of made some adjustments, and then was actually fine in the air. So hopefully that can happen to him again. And yeah, you mentioned kind of Soler and Lowe there. Also, both made incredible diving catches across the weekend. So yeah, that's kind of the worries that kind of we have of Soler being in the field. Maybe he's going to be right. As we said, coming in, he's leaner, he's in the shape of his life, as everybody should be, but he does look healthier and looks like he can move a lot more. Last year, at times, he looked like he was just frozen out in right field at times, but he looks a lot better in the outfield and at the plate as well.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I mean, him in the 4 slot after last year was a worry for me. You don't necessarily want a guy like that cleaning up when he's struggling at the plate. But so far from what we've seen, I mean, that catch in right field was actually exceptional. I will say, and maybe I'm being harsh, he did let one over his head later in the game where potentially a fully fledged right fielder, everyday guy might have got back there and caught it. I mean, I didn't really watch it back, so I don't want to speak too harshly on him. I did just think in real time, you know what? That's a play that possibly could have been made that he didn't really get close to. But he had some really big hits. He hit the home run. He hit the 3-run double yesterday as well, which he drove down the left field line. Some really clutch moments from him over the course of the weekend when the Angels needed it. And that's what we want to see from the lineup as we go. You mentioned Josh Lowe as well. One really, really nice play. And that 3-run home run, which I think was a pretty emotional moment for everyone when they were watching that interview afterwards, wasn't it? I mean, I think it was on Apple TV, and Trisha Whitaker had a relationship with him previously from when she was covering the Rays. So I think there were some question marks about whether he wanted to talk about something so personal in that moment, but I thought she handled it well. And actually, his response just, I think it hit me. I'm sure it hit you. And it was great for him to have that moment for the Halo so early in the season, whilst he's still finding his feet with a new team.
Yeah, it's always good. You always want to start off on the right foot, and him getting that home run, and I feel like it's almost a bit of relief when you go through kind of so much trauma over the spring, and the last thing really you want to think about is baseball, and because it is at the end of the day it is a job, and kind of as much as these guys enjoy doing it, it's going to take some serious enjoyment out of it when kind of it's the last thing you want to think about. But yeah, I was really pleased for him, and then obviously you could see him getting emotional in the interview, which as you say affected all of it, especially us kind of in the early hours of the morning. Seeing that, it's always going to heighten the emotion. So no, I was really pleased with him, and hopefully it can continue. He struggled a little bit yesterday, but hopefully he gets back to on a bit of a better deal at the plate today and onwards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the games come thick and fast, and then we'll talk about the Chicago series soon. But some real positives from the Angels' offense, I think. There also positives. Let's talk about Jose Soriano. So the Angels won Game 1, 3-0 on opening day. Soriano pitched 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs given up. He looked like an ace in waiting. And the thing with Soriano is we know he has the stuff. He's shown us glimpses of this before. It's whether he can do it consistently. It's whether he can win. I saw someone else say this, whether he can win when he doesn't have his best stuff. But it was such a promising start, wasn't it, on opening night? What did you make of Soriano and his prospects for this season coming up?
Oh, he completely justified why he got the ball to start the season. He looked electric, and you can't say it's not been coming because we've seen it, like you say, inconsistently, and that is the thing for for Jose for the year, it's kind of avoiding the big blow up outings, which happened too frequently last year. Kind of there were so many occasions where he allowed kind of 3 or fewer runs, but then there were quite a few where he allowed like 7 or more. So it's just kind of cutting down on those. And as you say, when you've not got your best stuff, still been able to work through it and be able to work around it. I mean, as you say, the 7 strike out 19 swinging strikes for Soriano,
Wow.
which is an impressive figure. So yeah, it's hopefully every 5 days we're gonna be all right.
It would be nice because that leads us on to the next lot, which was probably less impressive. Some good signs and some bad signs. Kikuchi, we did win that game again 6-2 on Friday. Good win. Kikuchi clearly didn't have his best stuff. I think pitched out of some trouble at times and only could go just under 5 innings. So we need a bit more length out the start. But what did you see from Kikuchi and the Halos in that win to encourage you as that sort of 1-2 with Soriano and Kikuchi for the season?
I think, well, as you say, like working his way out of jam. It always seems to happen with you. So I don't know. Whenever I watched him, there'd always be traffic on the bases, but he'd always managed to work his way out of it. So I guess it's kind of business as usual for Kikuchi, I guess more than anything. So yeah, hopefully he was steady last year, and he was the Angels' kind of most consistent starter because he was just steady. He'd never didn't really have many blow up outings, but there wasn't many in there that blew you away either. So hopefully it's another year of just kind of steady production because we know he shouldn't be a frontline starter, but because of the way the Angels have built their rotation, he was their number one guy last year. So I think as a 2 or a 3 or potentially even lower, he is very serviceable. But yeah, as like I say, as the front of the rotation, he just needs to kind of go a little bit deeper into games.
I think you'd really like him if he was the number 4 guy in your rotation. You'd be saying, we got a really strong staff here, and Kikuchi, he can win on any given day. That's what I will say to him. You do know going into a Kikuchi start that generally the offense probably has to turn up a bit, but he will largely hold you in games and give you the opportunity to win. And that's kind of what you want from that level of starter. The fact he's number 2 in the rotation at the moment isn't ideal, but I think we've seen enough from him to know that he's going to have an important role to play all season long. And actually, if we can keep Kikuchi or get his Houston Kikuchi or even slightly better than what we had last year, we're in business a little bit with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that with his production, like I say, there is. I feel like there is going to be traffic on the bases. It's a lot less painful to watch than Carl Hendricks last year, who would just be constantly letting runners on base, but working his way out of it. And he'd go his customary 5 or 6, allow his 3 runs, and he'd be like, it's a quality start, but it didn't look quality. At least with Kikuchi, it looks quality at times. So there is kind of that promise to build on for him.
Yeah, fully agree. 2 more positives, I would say, before we move on to some of the slightly less positive things I've seen this weekend. Sam Bachman, like all the pedigree in the world, first round pick, good college career, looked like he could be promising for the Halos, obviously drafted as a starter, had all sorts of injury issues and problems. He's at 2 games, but he's come in and he's looked really, really good, hasn't he? I think he's pitched 3 innings, scoreless innings, and he's been a real bright spark in that bullpen for the Halos. The other guy, Jordan Romano, looks like he's going to be the Angels' closer. I think coming into the season, it was a bit of a committee with him, Kirby Yates, Robert Stevenson. There's a few guys we thought Ben Joyce that could take up that closer role. 3 of them have gone down already, which has left Romano as kind of the only guy with that experience and ability to do so. But on his chances for the Angels so far, he's pitched really well.
Yeah, I think with Bachman, you know that you're going to have the high up and out his fastball, and it's just can he command it? And he did show kind of some signs of being a little bit loose with it, but you know if he can tighten that up as the season goes on, he's going to be a very, very important arm. And it's just for him, it's just health. It is just health. We know that he's got it and he can perform. It's just about can he perform kind of your 2 out of your 3 days or your 3 out of 4? Can he kind of pitch in those high level situations consistently, or is he going to be one that you have to wrap in bubble wrap and say, well, he can pitch for 2 days and he's off for kind of 2 or 3? So it's kind of just about getting that production from him regularly because he is going to be needed in what is otherwise a very weak bullpen. And yeah, Romano, he looked good as well. especially when you compare it to Drew Pomeranz. Romano was good as kind of one of the free agent additions to the bullpen coming into the year. So no, he looks like, as you say, early on in the year, he's going to take the closer role. Did have it last year until he looked terrible and then never regained it. So hopefully that doesn't happen to him and he can kind of keep his side production going as well.
Definitely. So the Angels started that year, this season, 2-0. I mean, I think by the end of Friday, we were all ready to fly over for the World Series, weren't we? It looked like this team could possibly go 162-0. They were on top of the world. Things came crashing down over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Where to begin with that? I think let's just do it a little bit in chronological order. But Reed Detmers, for example, again, a big favourite of ours on the show here. He showed signs of life, some promise. Also, the downside to Reed, which I think... So he ended up going 4.2. He gave up 3 runs. He struck out 9 guys, which, Reed Detmers can strike out guys. And I thought he did that very well. And actually, until the very end, he was getting himself out of trouble. He was bringing himself into trouble and then getting himself out of it. But we need starters to go a bit longer than that. And we need the control to be there with Reed. If he's going to stick around, he cannot be so loose, I guess. Although he didn't walk anyone, I will say to him, which is a credit to him. But what did you make of Detmers' start? I think it was a bit of a mixed bag. He just used a lot of pitches to get outs.
Yeah, I think you kind of can't really explain it any better. He looked like the guy at times that came out of the bullpen last year and was just striking out everyone for fun and just kind of commanded the baseball incredibly. And then at times he just looked like he was leaving too many balls, throwing too many hittable balls, which, as it proved out to be, was a bit of his downfall, really. And at times he can struggle to get that strikeout pitch. And other times it just looks so natural. So yeah, he's another one where consistency matters a lot, and it's going to be about putting those stints that he had in 1 or 2 innings as a reliever, stretching those out over kind of 5 or 6, and that is where he's going to be a little bit more costly for him if he can't get those strikeouts, because he needs to keep his pitch count down because of the weakness of the rest of the bullpen that has been shown already. We need him to go a bit longer into games, but there is promise there. Like you say, the 9 strikeouts is something that is definitely there to build on in less than 5 innings as well. So yeah, if he can just stretch those out over a bit of a longer period, he's going to be absolutely fine.
Who do you have more confidence in, Detmers or Kikuchi? Or maybe confidence is the wrong word, but who do you see as being sort of have the ability to push on for the Halos and get into that number 2 role and actually deliver for us and shine?
Well, based off of just one outing, you're going to say Reed Detmers, and then you look at all the other factors going into that, as in like he's a younger guy and he's back in the rotation for the first time and he's got kind of plenty of stuff to build on, whereas Kikuchi's kind of in kind of his mid 30s now. So you don't think that he's actually going to kick on in and improve into that role. But with Reed Detmers, it's definitely something that he can do. He was brought in to do that, obviously. He has thrown a no-hitter that you may or may not have witnessed. So there is definitely the promise there.
Tell me more about this no-hitter.
I feel like you're in a better position to tell me more about it. So I feel like you should tell the story.
No, I feel like this is not one for the show. It's not one to talk about publicly. So I'd rather just keep that in-house. But I agree with you on Detmers, and you had a nice little segue in the middle of that where you talked about the bullpen. And this is an area I am really, really concerned about. I tried to pull out those positives there with Backman and Romano, maybe Silseth in there as well. There's a few guys that I think could possibly be good for the Angels this season. But actually, the back end of the bullpen, I am deeply concerned about. We talked about it on the preview pod now, but I think it came to fruition over the weekend. Some mad stuff, and we're talking about this Detmers start. Firstly, giving up 8 runs with 2 outs in an inning. So in the 6th inning, the Angels coughed up 8 runs. It included multiple errors. It included some really bizarre managerial choices from Suzuki. Wilbur Arena, he's already been sent back down to become a starter again. It's absolutely madness how the Halos work. But he took over from Detmers, ended up coughing up quite a few runs in that inning. Lots of them went unearned because of the errors. But he looks like he was, didn't really have his stuff and didn't really deserve to be in the majors at that point. I think he needs a lot more seasoning in the minors. Then you got people like Lucchesi, who they picked up on just before the season started. Suter, I know some of the other Pomeranz you mentioned. These are guys in the back end of the pen that I'm very worried about over the course of the season. Am I right to be?
Yeah, I don't think they showed anything that would make you believe, and kind of obviously you can't. The only caveat you can say is it's early season, and players are going to grow into form, and it's not going to be something that happens consistently. But if you just look purely at the names in the bullpen, you're going to be concerned, and then you look at what they did over the weekend, and then you're going to be very concerned because I guess a lot of it kind of wasn't their fault with the errors. That inning was just absolutely calamitous, and I'm sure we'll get out to the defense in kind of the next bit. But I'm just talking about the bullpen now. It wasn't great. There wasn't anything in there that would fill you with much confidence at all. With just kind of throwing way too many hittable balls. It was there was so many that we just kind of like just batting practice-esque, middle of the plate, easily hit, and you'd think for these guys that are proven major leaguers, they're easily avoidable pitches.
Agree. And the Halos blew a 6-run lead in that game as well. I mean, I think just before that inning, I was ready to do the celebratory 3-0 stuff. I thought we're there. I mean, at 6-0, the Halos looked fantastic. They were cruising along. It was the same as we'd seen the previous days. And then it all just completely capitulated in a fairly disastrous way. And actually, let's talk about some of this and how it unfolded. But firstly, I want to say, I think the time has come that I am completely done with Logan O'Hoppe. I think we gave him so many opportunities last season. He was the worst catcher in the majors. And to start this season, he looks completely shot. Every part of his game just looks like it's struggling. He seems to have the yips with his throwing arm. I mean, throwing everywhere. He's made errors to third base. He's made errors to first base. He's made throws into the outfield, throwing to second. It's just, there's something that is going wrong in his brain. He's pressing too hard. He's trying too hard. 2 of those balls he should have just held to himself. There was no reason to throw them. One of them on the Arena one, and actually where things really unfolded, he should have just let the pitcher toss it to him. It was a force out at the plate. It might have been bang, bang, but it was the only real play that was on there. He tried to make a throw from his knees to first base, which went wide of Shanuel. It just, that's one thing. I mean, the catching generally is poor. Hitting, he just looks fairly lost at the plate on the whole. He's swinging through everything. Where do we go from here? I think we generally now are struggling with this catching situation where we have to take Logan out of the fire, whether that's putting him to AAA and letting him just work every day down there, whether it's actually changing his positions and putting him at the hot corner, for example, and seeing if his back will develop when he's taken catching duties off him. I don't know. And it's early in the season, which is obviously reactionary, but it's not just about 4 games, is it? It's about the whole of last season. Well, the second half of last season particularly, and this now. Yeah, what do we do with Logan? But I'm really struggling with it. And the one thing I obviously haven't mentioned there, as you know, is the challenge, but I was going to come to that. But in terms of performance, what do you think?
You could definitely make the argument that he was the worst player for the Angels over the weekend. Even considering Yohan Moncada had 1 hit and more errors than hits across the weekend. Same, I think I hope it was the same. But yeah, he just, I really don't understand what has happened to him over the last kind of year. He started off last year looking really hot at the plate and was kind of the defensive liability that he had was completely offset because he was swinging a hot bat. He was looking really confident, and it's just evaporated completely. And we thought that bringing Suzuki in as manager, who obviously long-time major league catcher, would kind of revive him a bit and he'd be able to at least show some signs of improvement. But he looks like he's regressed even further. I really don't understand how and why it's happened, because he was such a promising part of the Angels' young core. We'd speak about the Angels' young core, and it would be Neto, Shanuel, and O'Hoppe and Adele. And Adele being the one that you're a bit iffy about, and he's the one that potentially is going to drop out of that. And now him and O'Hoppe have completely switched around, and now you're questioning whether O'Hoppe has a long-term future at catcher and even a long-term future with the Angels more than anything else. Is he a major league player? That's kind of the biggest question for me at the minute.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. And it's really sad. I think, as you said, Logan O'Hoppe was spoken of, him and Zach Neto, as that top tier. This is, these are the two pieces we are building this team around now. And whilst Neto, and we haven't spoken about him yet, and we actually should have spoken about Neto in the positives, by the way, because he's just, I guess, almost like Mike Trout, where I know when I used to do the podcast with Dave, when Trout was still performing at quite a high level, we used to forget to talk about him because it just becomes an expectation. And with Zach Neto, it's not quite there yet, but we know what he does. We know that all these tools he has. He made a great play going back yesterday. He's hit a couple of home runs. He's taken his walks. He's just a superstar that the Angels need to extend. But going back to O'Hoppe, the problem I think we have is there is a very little catching depth within the system. There isn't a guy that's ready to plug and play up here. I mean, you can obviously get a glove first catcher off free agency. I mean, they're sitting around off the scrap heap, someone that can come in and call a game.
Bring back Chad Wallach.
Well, I mean, Chad had a few moments. I was also there when Chad Wallach hit one over the fence, so I have seen that one live as well. But there are very few options to replace him. But I think we are coming to a point. You can't do it with Darno either. I mean, Darno actually hit under 200 last year. I think he's spoken about a lot more highly than his level of performance gave us with the bat. I think calling games and actually as a catcher, we definitely see a step up from O'Hoppe to Travis, although I don't think it's that great. I mean, I think our catching situation's in a pretty poor place generally. So I don't know what to do with this. You obviously, as I said, we're talking quite reactionary terms. It's 4 games in. And I did leave with a bit of clickbait in terms of I'm done with him completely. Let's see how it goes. But the positive signs are not there. The regression is real. I think he hit 17 home runs in the first half last year, 2 afterwards. Just looks lost at the plate and everything else beyond it. So where we go, I don't know. He's obviously going to be given a bit of a longer leash here, but he is a real weakness in this Halos team, both on offense and defense.
Yeah, which is something that you would be absolutely laughed out of the room for saying 2 years ago. And so it's just, it really does just beg a belief that as to what has happened and why. So, yeah, he is another one that we will potentially be debating over shortly.
We will. The final bit of that whole O'Hoppe conversation, and it actually links to Suzuki as well, I think, in terms of managerial decisions and what they're teaching there. But yesterday's game got out of hand just when Pomeranz gave up the 3 runs to fall behind 9-6. The pitch before that was a third strike, would have ended the inning. It was in the 8th inning. We had 1 challenge remaining. It is the perfect spot to use that challenge. That is what the challenge system is for. And even after the game, O'Hoppe sort of said, oh yeah, I knew I had the challenge, but I wasn't sure if it was a strike or not, and I didn't want to waste it. That is madness, right? Waste that challenge. It does not matter in that situation whether that was a ball or a strike. You use it in that spot. It made all the difference. And that is when you're in the 8th, it's fine. And I think that was the such frustrating thing for me. He seems to be caring too much about the challenge and not the game situation that we were in. And that would have changed everything. I honestly think the Angels would have gone on to win that game yesterday if that hadn't happened and had the momentum from it. As it turns out, we know we got 1 run back in the 9th, had a man on, and then Soler and Moncada just watched third strikes down the heart of the plate. But what did you think of that challenge situation? And actually, challenges generally that we've seen so far from the Angels, who I think have been fairly good with them, aside from that moment.
I'm really enjoying the new ABS. I think it's brilliant that to allow the challenges for calls that are either just egregiously wrong or that you think are wrong and stuff. And it's really good to see players who clearly have a good grasp of the strike zone. You mentioned how Mike Trout's got a great feel for the zone. The reason the Angels only had 1 challenge is because Mike Trout challenged the wrong pitch. First pitch was
Yeah.
back to him. Was off the plate, and he looked like he was.
He was annoyed. He knew.
He looked like he was about to challenge, and I feel like that was in his head the rest of the at bat. And then when he got the called third strike call, which was marginal, it was really close, and he challenged it, and then that one ended up actually being a strike, which is why the Angels only had one challenge. And yeah, I just think, look, the reason that you have the challenges is for ones that you're not sure about. 1, 2 doesn't matter. Like if you've got 2, you're gonna say, "Oh, I wanted to keep both for the offense in the top of the ninth." That's what they're there for.
Right.
His comments afterwards, I think, exacerbated the issue, saying that he wasn't 100% sure it was a strike, so he wasn't going to use it.
It literally doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're no or not. Using that. And this is what I said, actually. I think I was quite level with it afterwards in terms of Suzuki. And actually, I want him to sit down and some of the coaching staff to sit down with O'Hoppe, sit down with Darno, sit down with the pitchers and just say, look, in these situations, this is when you use it, right? Whether you're 100% or not, if it's a close game, one strike from a strikeout to keep the scores level or if we've got a lead to keep the lead, use it then. That is why ABS was brought in, is to get rid of some of these game-changing calls. And as it turns out, that was a game-changing call by the umpire that we then, in previous years, would have been fuming about. We'd have been absolutely livid. And it's so much harder to be livid this year because we have a system in place to mitigate that. Like last year, I would have been screaming all sorts of abuse at the umpire. But this year, you know what? It was a borderline pitch. It was just touching the bottom of the strike zone. So give the umpire like a little bit of credit there. It's tough to call. However, we have a system that should have been used. And it wasn't. And that is what boiled my blood. And actually probably the main reason I didn't want to record last night, because it was just so frustrating to lose 2 games in 2 days where we've seen so many errors on the infield, so many balls thrown away, and then a challenge that wasn't used correctly.
Yeah. And what a comeback for the umpires. In terms of like, all of the heat is just taken off them now because...
unless you're CB Buckner.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think... Maybe O'Hoppe was almost scared because he saw what happened to the Red Sox on Saturday. So anyone who kind of doesn't really know, they used their 2 challenges early in the game against the Reds on Saturday and lost them both. They then had 7 or 8 more chances where they could have used a challenge, but they couldn't because they'd lost their challenge. They ended up losing in the 11th inning on a walk-off, where the game could have been decided before then, they would have won. So maybe that was playing in his mind that he didn't want to kind of cost the offense or whatever, but who cares? Like, use it. You've got it. You've got it to be able to, a pitch that you want to overturn. O'Hoppe even said, he was like, he didn't even know it was a strike until 2 minutes ago when he did his interview, which is just baffling that he's not finished his inning, gone back into the dugout, got his iPad out, and is looking at those calls and gone, "Oh, if it's here, I can." It's just absolutely baffling. And O'Hoppe didn't start yesterday's game. Darno did.
Yeah.
And Jay McCallum did Alario pinch hit for Darno. And I instantly thought, I don't think we've made the right decision because we've seen what O'Hoppe's defense have been like. It's a close game. And he's then going to be asked to be behind the plate going into the 8th and 9th inning. And I hate that I immediately went, I don't think we should have done this defensively because you don't have another catcher, but it turned out to be an incorrect decision. Candelario didn't get a hit, and obviously O'Hoppe made obviously it's not like an official error, but he didn't challenge when he could and probably should have. So yeah, those managerial decisions have cost them.
Couldn't agree more. With the ABS system, though, I agree with you. I'm really enjoying it, and some of the footage of at the Reds, the loud cheers. It's great for baseball. More interaction with the fans, more people invested in the game, and actually taking away from some of those critical errors. I'm all for. Do you see a situation now? This is just the start, and actually we're going to go further down this route. Can you see more pitches being called by the system?
I don't know. Because I feel like at that point, it very much mirrors tennis for me in terms of tennis used to be completely all by kind of your kind of your umpire's eyesight, your line judges. And then they brought in the challenge system where you'd have your challenges to overturn calls that you thought were bad, and then now at a lot of tournaments it's completely automated, and it just kind of takes a little bit of enjoyment out of it. I think of being able to have it just adds a little bit of story, a little bit of drama to be able to have these challenges to overturn, and I hope it doesn't go completely robo-ump, and I like that this is a happy medium. But also, I do feel I mean, you can't really. You kind of do feel bad for the umpires if their strike zones are kind of terrible and they're consistently having their calls overturned. But then that's a learning lesson for them. So if you go, if these are consistently pitches that I'm calling or not calling that are being overturned, then they should make those adjustments too. And we've seen already some guys refuse to make those adjustments. Mike Trout had 2 successful challenges on very similar pitches last night. So, and the umpire kind of saw the same pitch that had been overturned and called it again. So you'd think that they would be able to make those adjustments too. So hopefully it improves the standard of umpiring, and also the players on the field get their due when they do have a successful challenge as well.
Fingers crossed. I don't ever feel sorry for them. That's not an emotion that I've got or a feeling. One more person to touch on, Nolan Shanuel. Had quite an un-Nolan Shanuel start to the season, I would say. Particularly the first couple of games. He was striking out quite a lot, hit a solo home run in one of them, was looking for power, was swinging through stuff, missing things outside the zone, which he'd not usually swing through. But he started the year pretty well. He's hitting .313, already had those 2 home runs, driven in 5 runs already. So promising signs from Nolan, particularly if the power uptake is real. And he can continue. And as I said to start the season, if he can get up to 20 home runs, I mean, then you're looking at a real positive piece for the Halos in the middle of this lineup, or in the third as he is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we all saw the opening day lineup and saw Shanuel in third, I was concerned, especially because based off what Soler did last year and Moncada hitting after him, you'd think that teams could just easily pitch around Neto and Trout, knowing that they're the only 2 kind of, I guess, real RBI threats. And you saw it happen. I feel like Hunter Brown was pitching around Mike Trout because he knew that he could get to Shanuel, and he wasn't going to be a big threat to bat the guys home. And what a mistake it proved to be. And it looks like an absolute masterstroke putting Shanuel at third, and he's batting the guys in, and he's found the power. So I don't mind the change of approach for Nolan and hitting for a bit more power, because when you are in kind of the 3-4 hole, you do want to kind of hit for more power rather than contact. So I don't mind that he's swinging harder and he's making a little bit less contact. I can trade that off for him to get more runs batted in and get more home runs. I think it would be really good for the team and for Shanuel himself if this was something that kept up throughout the whole year.
Yeah, long may it continue. I really have promised. Now, I have saved the worst until last. I didn't really want to have to talk about him today, but we have no choice. And I hate to say I told you so. I did have a feeling this may happen, but Jack Kahanowitz pitched exactly the same as he did last season. He only went 4 innings. He gave up 5 earned runs, 6 runs. He walked 5 guys. He had a few Ks, but it was just the same old for me. Some really good pitches in there. Clearly has some stuff that should play at major league level. But as soon as he had any sort of adversity and guys on base, he just struggled. What did you see from Jack? Did you see any promise? I know you were higher on him than me. Did you see any promise there?
Yeah, I did. I don't want to be looking at him with rose-tinted glasses, since he was a bit of a kind of hope for me, but the change-up looked really good. Froze Altuve a couple of times, got plenty of swinging strikes on it. So yeah, the change-up looked like it could play, but everything else just looked not great, to be honest. Yeah, I was hoping that this would be the year that he improved. He looked okay, and obviously when he was a rookie, and then last year had the sophomore slump, and made some changes and adjustments, and Gooby was talking highly of him. I guess kind of you have to coming into the year and being the kind of team employee, but yeah, he just couldn't put it together. And as you say, whenever there was traffic on the bases, he just looked erratic and completely just like it was his life depended on it. He couldn't get out of it when there was just kind of minor traffic. And it's unfortunate because he did have such a good spring. And I just hope that this one start hasn't completely affected his confidence in a way that he feels like he has to go back to what he was doing and go back to what's comfortable rather than kind of doing what is new and hopefully can play. But
Well, we
yeah,
know.
it's definitely a worrying start.
Yeah, well, we know what's comfortable doesn't work either, so I don't think he should revert to that. I trust in Mike Maddox. I think that's the point here. We need him to keep working with him, and I hope that he will improve as the season goes on. And it was just first start nerves and regression that way. But I'm not optimistic. I never was optimistic. I get why he was in the rotation after the spring he had, but it's worrying for me that already we have concerns at the back end of the rotation, particularly when we have Ryan Johnson going tonight, and that leads us into this Cubs series. Professional over here. 3 games against the Cubs. They're coming thick and fast. Johnson on the mound tonight, and then we'll have Soriano and Kikuchi. So actually, it's kind of what you want, I think, going into a tough place to play. How are you feeling after Houston? Positives with the offense, some challenges with the pitching. Going into Chicago, who we know are a decent team. What are your thoughts for this series ahead?
Yeah, Chicago obviously a very good team. So which adds cause for concern. Love seeing games at Wrigley. What a beautiful ballpark. So yeah, don't mind the location of where they're going to be playing, and hopefully the offense can kind of keep being hot, and the pitch and the defense can find something because they God knows they need to. It's going to be an interesting one playing against another team you expect to be up into playoff contention again at the end of the year. So, early on in the year, you can catch them in a bit of a moment, and yeah, hopefully it all works out for the Halos in the way that we want it to, at least.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm really excited to see Soriano back on the mound. I think that's the main thing for me. Seeing what the lineup can continue to do when they're in somewhere new before we get home. So it's a promising series that will be a real test for actually, is this Halos team improved from last year? Do we have a chance in these games, or actually is it as much as we feared? And those first 2 games were a bit of a fluke. If I was to ask you right now, predictions, where are you going for this series?
I think Soriano will win his game and we lose the other 2. I think we go 1 and 2 in the series. That would be my prediction.
Okay, so I'm going to be the optimistic one and say Ryan Johnson steps up into the rotation and looks the part. I think he has all the ability to go and be really good for this Halos team. I was much more confident of Johnson than I am of Kahanowitz, and this is probably not going to happen, but I think he goes 6 innings tonight, gives up 1 earned run, strikes out 7, and leads the Halos to victory. That's where I'm going tonight. I think you're right, Soriano wins, and then Kikuchi gets smacked around a bit in the daytime on Wednesday.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting that we've both picked one of the back of the rotation starters as our little kind of our little hope story. So I feel like we should probably, I don't know, make a bet or something about who's going to be the better starter as the season progresses. I don't know if you want to lay some terms down and lay a wager. And
I'm very keen for this, but let's give it some thought. We'll come back on the next episode.
After you've seen Ryan Johnson pitch,
what we've decided. Oh, it's only fair. You've seen Jack pitch, so
yeah, and I'm still willing to make the bet. That's how much I believe in him.
We will come back for the next episode with something, so I don't have to think on the spot. All right, should we move on to Halo or hell no?
Let's do it. So
again, I really need to get a jingle in there. I need a little Halo or hell no jingle.
Little stream deck, little button to press.
Exactly.
Yeah, obviously very reactionary because I was building them kind of as the weekend went on, knowing that we were going to record after the series. So first one is hopefully it's an obvious answer for you. Mike Trout is back.
Halo. It's
Uh,
the easiest Halo I've ever done on this show. He's back, baby, and long may it continue until he
yeah,
gets.
like he never left. No discussion needed. We've already talked about that already. Right, second one. Jose Soriano gets at least one Cy Young vote.
Hell no, I don't think he's consistent enough. I think we know there's going to be starts where he goes out of games early and gets hit around a bit. I don't think they're going to be as many this year as there have been in seasons past, but I still think he will have those off starts. So it's a hell no from me, but not to discredit who I think is going to have a very good season.
Interesting. Okay, coming into this year, Nolan Schanuel had hit 25 home runs in his entire major league career, so in 2 and a bit seasons. So my question to you is: Nolan Schanuel doubles his career for home runs this year, so he hits 25.
Hell no, but I think he may get fairly close to it. If he's over, I reckon he'll be over 40 minimum by the end of this season. Maybe up to 45 at a push.
I think a career high is definitely guaranteed. I just wanted to be a bit loftier and go, well, he's only at 25. I feel like 25 is achievable. He's hit 2 in 4 games. That's a 81 home run pace.
Yes, but I don't think it's going to last. So it's a hell no.
Logan O'Hoppe changes his position or gets his position changed for him.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to say hell no, only because the lack of catching depth in the system is so poor that I don't think we can afford to do that at this stage. I think if we had somebody else who could fill in that spot, and also we had somebody in the high majors that was a promising prospect, then you could possibly look at moving him to third base and letting him hit in AAA for a while. As it stands, I just don't think we have the depth to do it. So it's a hell no from me.
Campero can catch. Little bowling ball. He's played first base. He can catch. He's played right for it. He can definitely step up behind the plate. I just think O'Hoppe, because he is an athletic guy as well. So you'd think that he would be able to play either kind of in a corner outfield or maybe a corner infield. So yeah, I think that there is potential that I do think needs exploring. There's only so long you can go banging your head against the wall with him being so weak behind the plate that I think you have to at least explore the what he would look like in the outfield.
Fair.
Right, next one. After only having his changeup looking so good, Jack Hanowitz is a very good bullpen arm for the Angels.
When? This season?
Yeah, by the end of the year, yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go with the Halo for that one. I could see it. You're right. I could see them slotting him into the bullpen and him having some success just over 1 inning or 2 innings. But yeah, maybe go down the Detmers path where test him out in that role. Yeah, go for it. That's a Halo from me.
Yeah, I think just because of his changeup looking so good, kind of when it was on, that was really on. And I'm like, he's got the stuff to get strikeouts when he needs them. Probably can't be a high leverage guy just because of how lost he looks when guys are on base. But if you want him to eat up a couple of innings, kind of 5th, 6th, 7th, I think he'd be right with that.
Yeah.
One final one, because I know you're a staunch believer in this, and we have seen some miscues, let's call it. Managers don't mean that much.
Halo. You know my views on this one. They really don't. They have an impact to an extent. Like the other night, Game 3 when we lost. If he'd taken out Urania earlier, do we still lose? Maybe, maybe not. There's a possibility for him to have an impact there. The options in the pen were very much lacking that night, and we haven't said that. I will give them a little bit of leeway. There weren't many right-handers available after the first 2 nights, so it was going to be a struggle anyway. But I still think Halo, managers just don't have the sort of impact that people think they are. It's not a golden ticket changing manager to anything better. I actually think getting the right pitching and hitting staff is almost more important for that. I think, again, very early in the season, I hope Mike Maddox can have a real role with our pitchers and get them to a new level. But let's see. But yeah, it's a halo.
Yeah, I mean the hitting coaches. I said that if they've changed the approach for the Angels, that's clearly worked the first series. But yeah, the managerial decisions, it looks same old, making strange decisions of lineups and also bullpen arms. I mean, how do you leave Yohan Moncada at third base and not move Peraza over to third base? You want Adam Frazier to play, sure, but Peraza can play third base pretty well. Moncada's struggled, made an error. Peraza had a really good day at the plate. Why not?
Yeah.
Put him in the lineup. I don't get it at all.
He's the type of young guy that he's a former top prospect, hasn't really had opportunities to develop and grow anywhere. Let him play after his best day as a Halo. Just keep him in the lineup. You need him to build momentum. Think how much he can save us if he becomes something. If he can play every day at second base or third base, it's just such an asset to the club. So, yeah, I was disappointed to see that.
Yeah, I just thought we had to touch on that because it was something that kind of potentially could be mentioned. But yeah, he should have played for me, and Moncada should have not played, and then made another error. And it's just Angels are it's really they're just dramatic. There's just dramatic highs and lows already. So that the offense looks so good, but everything else just doesn't at times. So yeah, hopefully that's not a trend that continues going into the next series in Chicago.
That's the Angels for you. All right, Toby, I will leave it there, I think. That is a very in-depth discussion on the first 4 games of the Angels season. Lots of positives. I think probably a lot more positive than we were expecting to be after 4 games. Same old Angels in many aspects, though. Pitching struggles and defense, infield defense particularly, had some good moments, but also some absolute shockers. So let's see how they do in Chicago. Let's see some growth. Let's see the young guys just continue improving, and we'll be back very soon to discuss that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
In the meantime, if you haven't already, go hit that subscribe button, particularly on the YouTube, but also if you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast and you're hearing our voices. If you haven't hit subscribe, please go do that. Toby, let's wish for a good week. Go Halos.